Thank you. Good evening, Wareham, and welcome to the Select Board meeting of June 13th, 2023. May I have a roll call, please, Ms. Wertz?
Good evening. We have tonight Mr. Ronald Bessie with us, Mr. Alan Slavin, Mr. Jared Chadwick, Ms. Judith Whiteside, myself, Ms. Tricia Wertz, and our administrator, Mr. Derek Sullivan. Our lawyer, Mr. Bowen, is not here presently.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see, Mr. Slavin, I think with your tie, you're the right person to do it.
Sure, why not? Good guess. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements, Mr. Bessie?
I have none tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chadwick, do you have any announcements, please?
None tonight.
Ms. Wertz?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin, announcements?
First, Community Preservation Act grants. They're required to be into them by July 11th. And the form is on the town website under boards and then under Community Preservation Committee or CPC. Get that out of the way for wife. All right, there's an article in the newspaper about Route 6 Marion Road about converting to 2 lanes, basically from 600 feet north of Cromesett Road, which really is probably just a little before the bridge itself that's going to be repaired in the next few weeks starting, and it goes to the town hall. This project.
Mr. Bowen, raise your hand, please. Noah, let Mr. Bowen in, please. Go ahead.
Okay to go ahead, teacher?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, this particular project is 3 phases. They've already had discussions with Fairhaven and Mattapoisett. Marion has also had a separate meeting, and now it's our turn to have a meeting, and the meeting will be virtual. It'll be June 21st at 6 p.m. The basic concept is to have a 2-lane road with a 3rd turning lane from basically the New Bedford line all the way down to the base of Chapel Street in Wareham. The state wants to convert Route 6 from back to what used to be a major highway to like a minor, which means it's only 2 lanes, no longer be 4.
Mr. Slavin, is that the layout would be just like it is in downtown Mattapoisett, that 3-lane complicated thing, kind of in front of the fire station?
Yes.
Thank you.
And also the Swiss Beach project with the Swiss Beach light is not part of this. It's separate, and that will be done sometime within the next year. So even though this other piece is just initial discussion, it probably won't happen until, I'd say, 2028 at the earliest. The Swiss Beach project still goes ahead for 2025.
So, Mr. Slavin, do you have maps of what they're doing? Because our road is going to be really backed up.
They will
problematic.
They will provide that on the 21st during the presentation.
Thank you.
Let's see. I got some stuff there. I think that's it. We'll take it care of at the end of the meeting, the other stuff.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind all of you that we are not meeting next week, but we are meeting on the 27th. And then we're going to that alternate 2nd and 4th Tuesday, as we had discussed. I'm going to probably jump all the way around tonight. We have a 7:15 dog hearing, but I want to try and get other business done before we call that. Pamela Foley, if you're here, please raise your hand. Michael Mercier, if you're here, please raise your hand. Paula Jean O'Neill, please raise your hand. Sally Morrison, raise your hand. We're going to let you in now too. And if somebody's here for Turning Point, please raise your hand. And Michael Roderick, is that you? For the Cape Verdean Festival, please raise your hand. Okay. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion on 5A to the Historical Commission, please.
I make a motion that we excuse me, I make a motion that we assign Pamela Foley to a term for the Wareham Historical Commission to expire on June 30th, 2026.
That's a motion to appoint.
To point.
Is
Mhm.
there a second to that motion, please?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? She is a reappointment. Hearing no further discussion, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, she is appointed, subject to being submitting all her documentation. May I have a motion on the constable, Mr. Kamen, who is not with us, please?
make a motion that we appoint Gregory Kamen as constable for a term to expire June 30th, 2026.
Motion, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Remember, we went to the 3-year appointments on these. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Mr. Slavin,
yes,
myself, yes. May I have a motion on Michael Mercier, who does not seem to be, is that you, Michael Mercier, or Michael Mercier, are you here? If you are, please raise your hand. May I have a motion on Paula, Miss O'Neill, please, Ms. Wertz?
I make a motion that Paula Jean O'Neill be appointed as an associate member of the Conservation Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Ms. O'Neill is with us tonight. Would you care to say a couple of words, Ms. O'Neill, about your desire to be on this board? You're muted, ma'am.
Nature, the outdoors, plants, animals have been my lifelong interest. I moved to Wareham in 2017 and have been delighted to find how much conservation land we have and conservation-minded people. I sold my business, my farm, when I moved here, so I have more time on my hands and would like to participate as an interested citizen and help where I can.
Thank you. Any questions from any of my board members? Please raise your hand. Ms. Wertz?
Mine is more a statement, less a question. Ms. O'Neill, you worked for a substantial amount of time for Audubon as well, is that correct?
Yes, they purchased the Sacred Hearts Retreat Center property adjacent to my property. And I knew the land well from volunteering at Sacred Hearts, and they asked me to come on board part-time to be the on-site caretaker. And I was in my 4th year of doing that. And for various reasons, we decided to part company officially. So I'm no longer with Audubon. I do steward 3 properties for the Wareham Land Trust, however, and volunteer there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have a motion and a second to appoint. Hearing no further discussion or comments, I will call for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. Ms. O'Neill, you understand that there's several documents that you need to provide to our office before you can be sworn in.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Michael Mercier, are you here? Please raise your hand. I know there's somebody who keeps trying to come in and it keeps bouncing out. I'll take a motion, Ms. Wertz, on Michael Mercier and for Conservation Commission, please.
I make a motion that Michael Mercier be appointed to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire June 30th, 2026.
May I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a reappointment. Is there any further discussion on the motion to reappoint? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. Again, all of these appointments are subject to the documentation that you've completed all of the required training. I will now go to item 7A, the application from the dog park affiliation. Ms. Morrison is with us, but I will accept a motion first, Ms. Wertz.
okay. I make a motion to approve the application from the dog park affiliation of Framingham, of Wareham. care of Sally Morrison to place signs on town property.
May I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Hi Sally, how are you this evening? Why don't you briefly describe what it is that you're looking to do and the application is in order, so brief summary for us, please. And we can't see you or hear you right now. Noah, you can let Miss O'Neill out of the meeting, please. Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So
Can you
this-
identify yourself for the record, please?
Surely.
Thanks.
Sally Morrison from Depot. So this is the 5th year that we will be running Unleash the Possibilities Area Youth Creative Arts Contests this summer. And so the yard signs let people know where they can go to connect to be able to enter the contest, which runs through July and a part of August. And then the family celebration, the trophies and the raffle prizes will be awarded at the Gleason Y at the end of August. And then there's a month-long gallery of all the submissions at the Wareham Post Office. So all that's pretty much the same as it was last year.
Okay, I can't see on your application what dates you want to be able to put the signs up, please. Can you tell us?
Well, see, that's because it's not for the event of the family celebration. I believe it's written on the first
Yeah.
page. It has what the time frame that the
Oh, it does,
contest
okay.
runs.
Okay, so
What-
July 6th through August 7th.
And
Yeah.
signposts.
Yeah, okay.
Posting signs starting 6/26.
Yes, the week before the contest officially runs. And then all the signs are down because the family celebration, that one specific date, is just for all those who entered the contest.
So your request is for June 26th through August 7th, is that correct?
Actually, if it can be the week before, as Trish had said,
That is
Yeah.
the week before.
That is the week before.
June, yeah. So that
Okay,
because it's for Wareham, but it's also open to the whole area.
okay, great. Ms. Wertz, may you have a motion? Can you amend your motion, please, to give the dates specific for when those signs can be up? Because there's more than the 30 days that we usually give.
Yeah, I'm looking, so to restate the
June.
the motion is to approve the application for dog park affiliation of Wareham. Ability to place signs on town property from June 26th through August 7th.
Thank you. May I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin? Oh, did you have a question, Mr. Slavin?
Yeah, just quickly, we may want to check the sign bylaw to see if we do have on the sign bylaw a 30-day limit.
We do.
Uh,
So that's why I've asked for the specific dates.
I'm not sure how we go past the 30-day limit.
Mr. Bowen?
2 applications.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. So let's do, okay, sounds very smart. How about Ms. Wertz? How about June 26th to July 26th and then July 26th through August 7th? Is that your motion, Ms. Wertz?
Absolutely.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Thanks very much. Good catch, Mr. Slavin.
And that way
any-
then we don't set a precedent that we'll have a problem.
No, you're right. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion to grant those 2 applications? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
and myself, yes, it is granted. May I, Marcine Fernandez, are you here, or somebody from Turning Point, are you here? And if somebody from the Onset Cape Verdean Festival, if you're here, please raise your hand. Okay, Noah, you can let Miss Morrison back into the audience attendees, please. I don't see any. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion on 7B, please.
Yeah, I just have a question. You said there's nobody in this, in the meeting right now from these people?
Correct.
Because they have an event date here, but they don't say if that's the only time they want the signs.
We will do what they've asked for, which is on the agenda, please.
Okay?
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve an application from Turning Point, care of Marcin Fernandez, to place signs on town property.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, their event date is 8/8, and it's for a golf tournament. So let's make it back up 20 days from 8/8. So how about July 15th through August 8th? Is your motion,
And-
Wertz?
I'll amend the motion to include the dates of, what did you say,
July 15th through August 8th.
July 15th through August 8th.
Excellent.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes. May I have a motion, please, on the Cape Verdean Festival? Ms.
I make,
Wertz,
I make a motion that we approve an application from Onset Cape Verdean Festival Association for the use of town property for the Onset Cape Verdean Festival to take place on August 12th, 2023, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a rain date of August 13th at 7 a.m. through 6 p.m.
thank you.
Second.
Second, motion made and seconded. There are several requirements that must be met, and they are outlined in your packet. Mr. Slavin has volunteered to speak with Mr. Roderick tomorrow or the next day to make sure that he understands exactly what it is that needs to be forwarded to the town and when. Any further discussion on the motion to grant? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
yes,
and myself, yes, 700. Okay, I declare it to be 7:15, even though it's a little bit further than from 7:15. Ms. Wertz, I would accept a motion, please, to open the hearing on the dog hearing.
Ms. Whiteside,
Yes, Mr. Chadwick will be removing himself from the discussion. He will take his video and his audio off to avoid any conflict of interest. And he will rejoin the meeting once the hearing has been concluded and any action has been taken by this board. The record will note that. Ms. Wertz,
I make a motion to open the hearing for the dog. I make a motion to open the dog hearing for
Crane,
Crane.
is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to open the hearing on the matter of the dogs owned by the Crane family. Is there any further discussion on the motion to open the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote to open the hearing. Mr. Slavin,
yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, the hearing is open. Mr. Bowen will be running this meeting. If you plan to testify on behalf of, or during this meeting, please raise your hand. The Crane family is here. Please raise your hand. And any of the other names that I recognize from some of the complaints, if you choose David, would be let in. What we'll find out what your last name is later. Anybody else want to be testifying on this behalf? Devin, raise your hand because Miss Cloutier is our dog animal control officer. And is there anyone else who chooses to speak on this issue? One more person, Mr. Bowen. Noah, if you'd, okay, and Miss Hendricks, has raised her hand as well. If you would let that individual in, please, Noah. Thank you. I believe that is the number of people who planned to partake of this hearing, Mr. Bowen. If there's anyone else in the audience who is would like to speak during this hearing, please raise your hand now. Last call. Carrie Hendricks, please let Carrie Hendricks into the meeting, please. Thank you. Mr. Bowen,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
you're welcome.
Let's see, we've had a motion to open the hearing. It's been voted. Are the Koreans present?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Can you hear me all right, Mr. and Mrs. Korean?
Perfectly fine.
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's a notice letter dated June 1st, 2023. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Korean, in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 140, Section 157 of the general laws, you are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held before the Select Board on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023 at 7:15 p.m. regarding dogs kept or owned by you. Please find an attached complaint letter from the Wareham Animal Control Officer. If you require more information, please let me know at your earliest convenience. Did you receive that notice letter?
Yes, we did.
Okay, great. And the complaint that was referenced as being attached?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'm going to ask everyone who intends to testify to raise their right hands and affirm the following oath, or just say I do.
Would you like to see them, Mr. Bowen? Do you want them to turn
No.
their video on, please?
No, not necessary,
No?
ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
They should respond with the
I
video
do.
I
audio
do.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Can you hang on one second, Mr. Bowen? I didn't hear all of the people who would like to join this meeting. Can you ask one more time, Mr. Bowen, if they've raised their right hand? Yeah.
Everybody who intends to testify, has everyone taken the oath? Yes, no? Okay.
There's a number that are not unmuted.
Did you
All
not
right.
hear our response?
I have, David has responded. Ms. Hendricks, could you?
Madam
Yes, I'm
Chairman,
sorry. Yeah,
what we're going to do is just, if somebody goes to testify, I'll just ask them if they took the oath rather
okay,
than.
great. Thank you very much.
Do it this
Go ahead,
way.
Mr. Bowen.
All right. Just for the benefit of those attending and as well as the Koreans, what we're going to do is to allow the animal control officer to make an opening statement about what brings us here tonight. I will give the Koreans or their representative, if any, a chance to make a brief opening statement. And then after those opening statements, what we'll do is we'll ask the animal control officer to testify as to observations. We'll allow the Koreans to question the animal control officer. And then other persons in the audience who have been sworn can offer testimony regarding the complaint. Keeping in mind, of course, that the Koreans have the right to question anyone who testifies. Once the prosecution's case is complete, we'll ask the Koreans to make a presentation. We'll then close the hearing and it's back to the board to decide what should happen next. Is everybody all set?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I'd ask the animal control officer to make a brief opening statement. Why are we?
I'm Devin Cloutier. I'm the animal control officer. And as per my request for the hearing, I had requested that the dogs owned or harbored by Mr. Russell Korean and Mrs. Shannon Korean of 24 Old Glen Charlie Road are deemed dangerous as defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 136A, by reason of, 1, without justification, attacks a person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death. 2, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe possesses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. I've responded to 2 reported dog bites in less than 10 days. The dogs, one a Bushido, a 7-year-old female white Dogo Argentino type dog, and 2 a Bowie, a neutered male brindle Dutch Shepherd type dog. Have both been involved in several bites, including and prior to the events listed above. I have discussed with Mr. and Mrs. Crean the importance of preventing their dogs from leaving the property unattended and without restraint. Mr. and Mrs. Crean have violated a 10-day rabies quarantine that was issued on April 27th, 2023, which resulted in the second bite. Mr. and Mrs. Crean have proven to be unable to effectively restrain their dogs in a manner that can ensure the safety of the surrounding neighbors and their pets. Several neighbors have voiced their great fears that these dogs will continue to escape and attack while under the ownership of Mr. and Mrs. Crean. Several videos capturing the unprovoked and highly aggressive attacks have been sent to me to verify both the dogs and the events in question. Surrounding neighbors have stated to me that the dogs listed have attacked both humans and people on several occasions that have not been reported to the proper authorities. I fear that if immediate remedial action is not taken to secure or remove these dogs, that they will get out and attack again, resulting in serious bodily injury. Bowie is known to me to be less aggressive than Bushido, but both dogs must be subject to remedial action. My recommendations for both dogs, I'm sorry.
Let's hold off on recommendations for right
Okay.
now. Do you have any other testimony that you want to add at this point?
There are some reports listed, if you wanted me to read those, or, I mean, that for the most part kind of sums up the request.
All right. Do the Koreans have any questions for the animal control officer?
No, not right now.
Okay. Thank you. I think the next order of business would be to allow persons who are testifying.
Actually,
call-
I do have a question for animal control.
Yep.
Go ahead.
On how many occasions has animal control been called because of Bowie?
So regarding Bowie, both dogs, if I remember correctly, have been loose twice that I have responded to. And prior to that, I have not responded personally to any instances with Bowie.
You saw Bowie twice?
Let me just verify, the first one where we quarantined the dogs, Bowie was out for the second one, but Bowie did not violate the quarantine, the second instance, if I remember correctly.
Right, and Bowie was with me on that occasion. He was helping me track Bushido. He was restrained. I called him, he came to me. Bowie is well-trained in that way.
So restraint would be under physical restraint as required by the town bylaws, not verbal restraint. So him being loose and under verbal control does not constitute being under physical control.
Right, but according
Okay.
to the video, did it not show Bowie running to the pen and then coming back to me immediately? Or does it show him engaging in the activity with Bushido?
The concern is that they're still loose. The first video that showed, that's why we quarantined both dogs, was as we had both agreed, I wasn't able to definitively 100% without a doubt say that it was definitely Bushido that caused the bite. In the video, you could see both dogs go to the fence and a resulting injury happened. So just as a safety precaution for the 10-day rabies quarantine, we had quarantined both dogs. So I cannot definitively 100% say Bowie was not involved. The second bite, it was Bushido. I would confirm that. And
I have
not Bowie.
I have a question for the animal control officer. So during this bite, there were only 2 dogs present, and it's a question of whether it's one dog or the other. Do I have that right?
For the actual injury, it's the question is whether or not it was either dog. Both were present at the time of the injury, but both of them respond in a fairly aggressive manner.
We do
Yeah.
have a video, Mr. Bowen.
No, that's fine. Back to the Koreans. Did you have other questions for the animal control officer?
Not at this time.
No, not at, too soon to say something about the, neither dog has ever been a human outside of this yard. So we had an incident a couple of years ago when a neighbor's child came in the yard unannounced. And Bowie grabbed at him, didn't puncture him, but grabbed at him and cut their skin. And I had the dog officer at the time here, which was Cheryl, and explained to her what went on, whatever. And she had said that dog was in our yard, behind our fence, behind our signs, warning people to stay away from the yard, that we were fine. So I'm just a little bit, Bowie has not gone out, run around the neighborhood trying to attack people.
Bowie
I
has
mean,
never,
neither is Bushido.
Bowie
Bushido's
has
never
never
tried to.
escaped the yard though.
So Bushido has never bitten anybody either. But it's being kind of portrayed that the shepherd has attacked people out in the street, and it's just not true. So we can move forward. And
it's also being portrayed that Bowie is escaping the yard, and that is not true either. The only time Bowie ever left the yard was with me. I accompanied Bowie because he was
right,
tracking the dog.
and he wasn't leashed. Okay, but
Could I
So-
just, no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but whenever
Go
the
ahead.
questions are done. So the first bite that I had responded to, both dogs were outside of the yard on video, and then it does show Mrs. Korean going over to restrain both dogs. At that point, Officer Buckminster had accompanied me to respond to the call. While I was speaking with Miss McClure, Officer Buckminster went over to the Korean's home to ring the doorbell to see if we could speak with anybody. This was after seeing Mrs. Korean come over to restrain the dogs. I was told that nobody was home, that it wasn't their dogs. So it had caused a lot of confusion in the beginning, but both dogs were loose at the time. And I don't mean to infer that Bowie is the aggressor, but as a serious concern, I think he should still be subject to recommendations to keep him on the property.
All right, but you
Bowie
say
has
there's-
never
No.
escaped. No, I need to speak to that because Bowie has never escaped the property. He has always been accompanied by me. And secondly, when Officer Buckminster
Bucky,
when
that was
he-
later in the day.
right, when he contacted me, it was about 4 to 5 hours after the incident had happened. So when he's telling me your dogs are down the street 5 hours later attacking people, I said, there's no way it's possible because the dogs are completely contained within a kennel throughout the day
in the house.
in the house.
So that's where the confusion got there. We were thinking that he meant at that time our dogs were out and attacking. He was going by what went on in the morning.
Right. And we have ring video in the house, on the outside of the house, on the outside of the fence. So I knew that my dogs had not escaped. It's not that I was trying to pretend my dogs didn't get out in the morning, but the dogs got out at 7:50 in the morning, and he called me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was disputing the fact that the dogs were out in the afternoon.
may I ask a question just so I'm following this? Is it your testimony that the dogs had never left your property in an unrestrained fashion?
No, that is
Or-
not my testimony. My
Okay.
testimony is that Bushido, she got out this month on whatever the days were. She got out the first time and then she broke the quarantine a day before the quarantine was up. But the last time she had escaped the property had been
A year
over
and
a
a half.
year ago.
Yeah, a year and a
It had
half.
been over a year, and she has only, like, we have done everything we can. We live on the water. We have a 8-foot fence surrounding most of
of
the
the house.
property. And so it was the only way she gets out is she swims out.
We found it. We found the way she gets out. She goes into the water and she goes down the shoreline. So I have since put 32 feet of cattle fence in, so she cannot get into the water and go around.
About 4 years ago, when we moved in here, we tried to cordon off the water side, but
David
Mr.
Pichette
Pichette
was not happy with that.
told us we could not do anything because it would disrupt the microorganisms in the water. So
Yeah.
we were never able to restrain the dogs from the water side. When we found out Mr. Pichette, stepped
Yes.
down, and after this last incident, even though it had been a year since she had gotten out before, we took the initiative
Yeah,
and we put,
Yeah, I'll-
we'll take the wrath of the town for disrupting microorganisms, but at least we've got 50 some odd feet of cattle fencing. So the dog is not going to be able to get out because she's not a water dog. She's not a swimmer. Bowie, as the name would intend, is a swimmer, but he has never left the property unattended. Bushido is not a swimmer. She's a sinker. If she's out in deep water, she sinks. She does not swim. So we put the cattle fencing out. So we'll have 50 feet out into the water where she cannot swim out. I
right.
do believe that this will solve the problem because we are fenced in on all 4 sides now.
as an aside, I'd probably do yourself a favor and just touch base with the new conservation agent, just so you don't get run into
Oh,
any issues.
absolutely.
I know, we know them
We
well.
will absolutely
Yeah.
do that, but.
But we
when
had
it-
to, do something because her Houdini act going into the water is what is, caused these problems.
And when it comes to if I'm more upset about upsetting microorganisms or my next door neighbors, I care more about my next door neighbors and their fear and their safety. So I'll pay the penalties and the consequences for disrupting microorganisms, because in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't matter to me, but my neighbors feeling safe in their homes does matter to us. So we have gone to extreme measures. We purchased a neck restraint from like the Caesar Milan thing that cost us $1,000.
$1,000 GPS activated.
Right, that will
electric
shock the
collar.
dog if she goes near the water. We also have spent over $1,000 for canine training from a certified canine officer. And I have some paperwork that I can upload to you from that, because that is also, and that was just the down payment. We're talking $3,000 to $5,000 worth of canine training to try to deter this. And that is with Professional Canine Services. The master trainer's name is Charles Young, and he is an AKC evaluator as well as a canine trainer for the majority of the canine offices with both police and sheriff's departments in Massachusetts. So we are really being extremely proactive and spending a huge amount of money to try to keep these dogs in, because we don't want this to happen. I understand, I have children, and I respect Mr. David Francis and Mrs. McClure, and I respect Mrs. Texera, and I appreciate their concern and their fear. But we are doing everything we can. And we have also talked about putting Bushido down, which we don't want to do because, again, we have children. And as Mrs. Hendricks can testify, as her children have been in the house, Bushido is a loving dog. Bowie is not friendly when you enter the property, but Bushido is a loving dog in the property, but she's not friendly if she gets out. So we have two very different dogs. They're Jekyll and Hyde, so to speak. But if we can keep them enclosed in here, I'm sorry, Mr. Pichette, but we've disrupted the microorganisms and hopes
Well,
that our neighbors will be.
Let's hold off on the Mr. Pichette stuff. What we're dealing with now are the complaints. So do you have any other questions for the animal control officer?
None at all.
No, you don't.
Okay, members of the board, questions for the animal control officer? Through you, Madam Chairman.
If you do, please raise your hand so I can recognize you. No, Mr. Bessie, please.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just, going through all the notes and the reports that were written. So just so I'm clear, while I'm thinking through all of this stuff, were two separate recent incidences that you responded to, both resulted in some type of harm or injury to another pet or another animal in the neighborhood, but it was one dog one time and one dog another. I just want to understand.
So Miss McClure has two dogs. The first event, Bushido and Bowie were both present at the time of injury, and they were the aggressors. So Miss McClure, the way that her yard is set up is she has a fenced in area outside of one of her doors, so that way the dogs can have access but still be protected and secured. Bowie and Bushido were both loose. From what I saw in the video, they were both loose, came to the gate. You could see there was some sort of altercation that happened at the fencing, resulting in one of her dogs being injured. I couldn't definitively say whether or not it was Bowie or Bushido that bit at that point. And then the second incident was one day prior to the quarantine being released. It was Bushido that had gone back to the same fencing and bit the other dog. So it was Miss McClure's two separate dogs that sustained injuries on two separate events.
Okay, so this would be a third offense for Bushido, if I'm reading the notes from 2021.
I can't
Go back.
testify to anything prior to my experience with them
Okay.
from April 27th, 2023 on.
Okay. So,
Prior
but
to
it's
that,
two-
there is a listed bite from Officer Cheryl Gravadil, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I can't testify to that.
Okay, no, that's what, but we're talking about 2 instances within a 10-day period with the same dog.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to be clear. That's it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the board?
Mr. Bowen, I would ask that the video that we were sent be shown. Mr. Sullivan apparently is able to broadcast it.
All right. Who took the video?
Miss Carrie Hendricks, if I'm not mistaken, was the one who was able to take the video.
All right, well, roll tape. Can you describe to us what we're seeing?
So it's hard to see because it's a little shaky in this video, but the 2 dogs behind the fencing are Miss McClure's 2 bulldog type dogs. That is Bushido, the white dog that you can see, which is the aggressor. And this video, there was a separate video from another occasion that involved Bowie from the first event. If I'm not mistaken, this may be the video from the second.
What's the date of this video?
That video was taken a year and a half ago, October.
The one
Oh,
we're
my
seeing right
phone.
now?
I have that same video on my phone because Carrie sent it to me. And I had made the comment then, how can a dog with a head the size of a cinder block bite through a chain link fence on a dog that's got a completely flat face?
So that is
When I went-
entirely possible. Just
When I went down to get Bushido that day, the 3 dogs, so they have 3, they don't have 2, they have 3.
not anymore.
Oh, okay, sorry. They were going at
In this
each other.
video, you see 3
But
dogs.
in that video, there's 3 dogs. This is a year and a half ago. And the 3 of them, you know, because not everybody, dogs were all wound up and going at each other. Their own dogs were actually biting at themselves. And
Well,
that's
hold
why
on. I asked a question about this video. Is, Devin, is this video depicting the
No,
event?
that is an older one. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find now. There were several videos that were shown. Several videos were shown to me at the time of each event, and I had requested that they all be emailed to me just for
Okay,
evidence, and I'm having a tough time locating and making sure that I have the correct ones.
all right. So members of the board, the video that you've just seen does not pertain to the event that is the subject of this hearing.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it correctly identify the fence and the property that we're talking about? And
Yes, so that is Miss McClure's property, and the fencing is still, if not exactly the same, extremely similar.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? That's my understanding, Madam Chairman, that there are some individuals who wanted to testify in support of the complaint. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe David, whose last name I'm afraid I don't know, has his hand up.
Okay. Well,
And there are other people present as well who have identified the desire to speak.
okay. Well, Madam Chairman, if you could curate the list, why don't we start with David? And he can tell us what he can about the allegations.
Thank you. David, if you could identify yourself with your full name, please, as well as if you have a video, please let us see that as well. Thank you.
Is David in?
Yes, David is there.
Hi, David, could you give us your full name, please? I'm-
We can't, that was really not loud enough, sir. David Francis.
Thank you. Were you sworn in earlier?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you tell us why you're here and what you saw?
on the floor. This is take a lot farther back than just validation. So I kind of want to say it's been more than just the two dogs. There's been an attack inside the car. Another attack where my fiance was barking outside the fence, and I had to chase the dog away. Another time I pulled up with a baby. I had to drive my car at the dog. Get the dog off, beat the horn, scream, everything, trying to get the dog out of the way. We've been actually in front of a judge about this. This is probably 15 or 20 different episodes. This has been the only one that's really helped out. Pushed this far, but it has been other dangerous dogs, very other dogs. This is not something new. This is 4 years, and it's not to the point where I have a 7-year-old that was drawing pictures of dogs bleeding at school and things like that. And you know they're not allowed to go outside without an adult under the dog. I've had to set up different weapons around the house. That way, if the dog comes, I have something to send myself or the other dogs. It's been a hell of a 4 or 5 year run. So this is not even close to last year of what's happened. This is mostly one dog consistently, but it has been both dogs over the years. These are only these two. I'm sure the Wareham courthouse will have a bunch of information on many other times. The Wareham Police Department has, I would venture to say 15 to 20 different times they've been here. Again, just this last time, I was actually here. The last time I'm at work and it's me, but this time I was actually here. The dog, my dog, my dog had scars on his face from it. And I was on my side of the fence, and I had to continue to shoot the dog. I grabbed the pipe, trying to climb over the fence, get the dog. The dog was stuck on my dog's face through the fence. That one, I don't know if it was on video. I was just busy trying to defend my dog. So I went a little bit flash with my phone. They told me to come after the children in the neighborhood. I believe the nice old lady behind me. It killed her dog 2 years back, and that might have been the year before I moved in. She was because she went up her own way, so I'm not sure that understands the whole thing. But yeah, they definitely killed her dog, and she talked to the police. All the neighbors here are, petrified to let any of this get outside. And as far as really caring about your neighbors. It's been 4 or 5 years since I've been here that they've done nothing. I think their care is not just to say the least.
Thank you. Questions from the Koreans?
Not so much a question. The dog he's speaking about was the dog that my friend, who has since passed away, Sean Brophy, his dog was attacked by a coyote. So I'm not sure, what story he's talking about. And yeah, it has been going on for about 4 or 5 years, but it didn't start with dogs, and it's a story for another day. But it started with their son, who threatened violence against our son.
Sodomy, to be exact.
So yes, we did go to court.
Oh,
And-
well,
We went to court
And so
over.
what would be great is if you got those court records, because that was a good day in court when the judge was going to arrest them for going on the way they did. Like, he didn't tell you that the kid got arrested one other time when the
But
dog
we're-
officer showed up. So I don't care about that.
We're not going to bring up that because
Our
that
dog-
was handled
this
in
is-
court.
Yeah, this is,
okay, so let me suggest to you that the animal control officer and the town hasn't brought it up. And that the only one who is bringing it up right now is you. So let's just leave that aside and focus on the
Okay, so-
allegation.
I have
Okay.
I have a question. I would like to speak to David.
You
If
may
your-
ask him a question.
Okay, if your family was attacked by a dog 15 or more times, how many times have you called the police or animal control?
2 times, 15 to 20 times. They broke and all the way.
Okay. Well, they have that record at court, and the day we were there, the judge called a recess and went out back for 45 minutes and came back with the 15 complaints that were 2 against us, and the rest was something different, which had nothing to do with us. And we can have that sent. We can have the court send it.
Ms.
Oh.
McClure, I have a question for you. If my dog attacked your wife and your child, why did you not call the police?
Mr. Bowen, that other person hasn't been identified for the record yet. This is
Right.
only.
He hasn't testified, so that question's not in. Any other questions for the
No.
gentleman who just
No.
testified? Okay, who's next?
No, I
Oh.
have additional questions. My question is, Mr. McClure, as a
No,
husband
that's
and
for instance.
No,
Mr.
no, okay, we're not going to get into rhetorical questions.
Yeah, let's-
They're argumentative.
No,
You can
it's
visit
not a
back.
rhetorical question. It's an
It is
actual
a
question.
Question, ma'am. Does the board have any questions for the witness?
If you do, please raise your hand. The answer is no. The board has no questions of.
Okay. Next
you.
witness.
And the next witness would be Carrie Hendricks, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't remember how to pronounce your name.
Kayla
Kayla, thank you. And your last name is?
Hendricks.
Hendricks. Mr. Bowen?
Kayla, go ahead and tell us why you're here.
Okay. On April 27, 2021, I was attacked by Bowie. I was going to pick up my niece from the Korean home, and I felt uncomfortable her being there because my brother was already attacked by Bowie as well. When I entered the gate, I was immediately attacked. Even though I was like 2 seconds behind them going inside the gate. When I was attacked, I got bit on both my arm, my left arm and my left thigh, resulting in nerve damage, and I had to get stitches on my thigh. I did receive medication in order for me to heal, but Mr. Korean did, try to get Bowie under control from attacking me. But I was very, very fearful. And I was nervous and upset because I was familiar with the dog, and I've seen Bowie attack another younger boy outside of the gate. He was like around like 10, and I forgot who was home, but I was tutoring children at their home, which is why I'm familiar with both of the dogs. But they got the dog controlled or whatever. And I just felt very uncomfortable being near the dogs or around the dogs whatsoever. So I stayed up there. When I found out my niece went down there, I went to go get her because I was very uncomfortable with her being there. Previously, my brother was bit by the dog, by Bowie, and I did not feel comfortable at all. I wanted to keep my family safe.
Okay, thank you, Kayla. Do the Koreans have any questions for Kayla?
I do actually have a couple of questions. Hey, Kayla, how long were you at my house for? Tutoring my children during COVID? Approximate hours?
It was like 2 months.
And how many days a week were you here?
I think I was there 5 days.
And how many hours a day were you here?
About 5.
And so 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for about 2 months. Did you ever have any problems with the dogs?
No, I did not.
Okay. When you were bit by Bowie, did you enter the gate alone, unannounced?
Yes, I did.
Okay. When you got stitches, how many stitches did you have?
Before I answer that, I'm going to let you know that I was 2 seconds behind you. Right when you closed the gate, I was going to get my baby. I did not want her down there, knowing that the dogs could be out.
That's not the question.
Regardless of if you're there or not.
I asked, how many stitches did you get?
I received 3.
Because remember, I've been a nurse practitioner in the emergency department for 20 years, and it is customary that we never stitch dog bites because they're dirty. So never
I
in 20
got, I
years in the
received 3
emergency
stitches.
department have I ever
All
stitched
right,
a dog bite
testimony that she
because they're
received
dirty.
stitches. It's not about your experience as a nurse. Any other,
I'm not a nurse. I'm not a nurse. I'm a nurse practitioner, which means I'm a provider in the emergency department, and we do not stitch animal bites ever because they're dirty wounds.
okay. Any other questions for Kayla?
Are you
What-
looking to see whether the board has any questions of her?
No, I'm just trying to find out if the Koreans have
Okay.
finished.
No, I'm
No,
done.
no, we're good. We know this.
Okay, questions from the board, please.
If any of you have a question, please raise your hand so I can recognize you. Mr. Bessie?
Yeah, first question, Ms. Hendricks, is what was the date that you were attacked by Bowie?
April 27th, 2021.
Okay, so that's okay, so that goes even further back.
Mhm.
But I will throw out there from personal experience, since it's been put out there. I was attacked by a dog at a very young age, and ended up with 37 stitches. So dog bites do get stitched. It's not something that doesn't happen. But I mean, that kind of goes further back than what we're discussing, but I just, wanted to get clarification on the date because, coincidentally, one of the incidences that we're discussing tonight happened to be also April 27th. So that's why I wanted clarification on the date. So 2 years post what you're speaking of. So that's why I just wanted clarification because I was confused about 21, 23. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank
Can I
you.
speak to that?
Any other questions of Ms. Hendricks?
Can I speak to that? Can I
No.
speak to
No.
Mr. Bessie?
No.
Questions from the board for this witness?
I don't see any others from my other 2 attendees.
Kayla, one quick question. Were you sworn in earlier?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. All right, next witness.
Carrie Hendricks has raised his or her hand, was previously in the meeting. Would you let Carrie Hendricks back into the meeting, please, Noah? Thank you. Carrie Hendricks, would you identify yourself, please, for the record?
My name is Carrie Hendricks.
Thank you. Mr. Bowen?
Were you sworn in, ma'am?
I'm swearing in. I did say, I raised my hand
Okay,
and I was, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
thank you. Tell us why you're here and let the board know what you have to say, please.
Okay, my name is Carrie Hendricks. I have very well concern, not just because of my children that got bitten, my 2 children that got bitten. I have videos, I have pictures. My children had to go and get stitches in multiple places. And my neighbors that own the dogs, they're very kind, but they're covering things up. Okay? And it's wrong. It's very wrong what they're doing. Many people have claimed that they were going to help us with this, and they did not. They were on their side because they know sergeants and they know people who work in high places. And it's wrong that they did not look at our situation and take it into consideration. I have pictures. My son got bit and and Sharon said, oh, I forget I guess, I don't know which dog it was that bit him. Oh, he was just playing with them, but he ripped his skin. My son has skin that doesn't come back together. He gets boils. I forgot how you call it. Like if you get an earring, it doesn't clot right. So he has
Keloids.
keloids. Yes, ma'am. He has keloids in his skin. And my daughter, she suffered. My daughter suffered. She was so afraid. And now Sharon is saying that my children came unannounced, and that's not the truth. There is evidence because an incident happened where someone down the street, it was a police call, and it involved a child. So me and Shannon went out and we was trying to see what happened. We walked to the corner, we was talking to the police, and then she said, do you mind if Nana, which is my granddaughter, do you mind if Nana comes and plays with the girls? And I said, of course, because that's what we would do. The children would play. So we go up there. I mean, they go up there, excuse me. And then my daughter, Kayla, says, why is she up there? They just bit Nobi, which is my son, who's not on right now. And I said, you know what? You're right. Go get her. They're walking up the street. My daughter is with this woman. They go in the gate. It's not that they were not unannounced. She's lying. And guess what? She has ring, as she just admitted. So let's go back and pull that up so we can see what the truth is. How that dog bit my daughter on her thigh, her leg, and her arm. And also, I have video of the white dog coming down and attacking other people and other dogs, my neighbor's dogs. And they had to get serious stitches. They ripped the dog's face. These dogs are going in the water and they're swimming down. The children can't play outside. There's another neighbor where the dog was attacked and got bitten and shredded by these dogs. The other neighbor, the son was bitten by the same neighbor that died, but he's not here to say what happened. His son got bit by their dogs. Something needs to be done. I'm not saying that they're bad people, but they are not able to take full responsibility of their dogs. This is wrong, and something needs to be done. I want something done. My children moved out. I have pictures that I can show you and videos. If you just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Here's a picture of my son. Just 1 second. That's his leg.
Little hard to see. What's the date of that picture?
It's oh boy. I just took a snap picture of it. I gave it
A
to
copy of that picture.
I did. I gave it to the animal control.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
When did this happen?
2 years ago. And this is my daughter. And I gave it all to animal control. It's not just a little bite. These bites are, she suffered. She suffered. And I wish that I can show you, like, my camera isn't too good.
We did get a copy of your son's bite, Miss Hendricks.
And what about, that's my daughter's thigh, that's her arm, and that's her arm, her thigh, and I forgot what other part of the body it is, but
So
something.
Ms. Hendricks, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to give the Koreans an opportunity to ask you some questions, and then I'll ask the board if they have questions for you. So
Okay.
Koreans, do you have any questions for Ms. Hendricks?
I do. After your son was bitten, did he return to our house?
Of course he returned to your house because he was your friend and he forgave you. But that's not the point. The point is your dogs bit my son.
After
And
your
excuse me, hold up. He only went back one time. And I told him he's not allowed to go back there again.
when
That's
was your
why you
son
never saw him
bitten?
again.
When was your son allegedly bitten by my dogs? Dogs.
All the animal rescue have all of that. It was back then, I forgot the date, but they have
have it on your
everything.
phone.
When
You
my
have it on your
dogs
phone,
were
right?
bit, when my children were bit by your dogs,
Please.
I immediately
I'm
went.
asking you please to look at your videos or your phone
I
pictures.
just took a snapshot, so it's not going to tell me.
When
It
was
would
your
be a
son?
snapshot. It would
Please.
be a snapshot. It would say today,
Let
because
me
that's
ask
what
a
I just
question.
did.
When was your son allegedly bitten by my dog? Dogs, multiple dogs. Was he bitten by both dogs or one?
No,
dog?
just one.
Which dog is it?
I believe it was the brown one.
Okay, and was it inside of the property or outside of the property?
He didn't let me know that. I believe it was inside your property because he was in your house.
Okay, was he bitten inside the house?
He said inside your property. I'm not saying inside your house. I mean, inside your property. I don't know if you were outside, if you were inside. Only you know that, don't you, ma'am?
When he was bitten, did he return to the property?
He returned to the property a week or two later after you tried to give him some medicine that it was not prescribed. So I didn't give it to him.
Antibiotics.
Yeah, that's not his doctor. So I didn't give it to him.
Okay, so
if you,
ma'am, you cannot give someone
I'm
medicine
just trying to ask
out
you
of your
questions.
practice. Excuse me.
everybody,
You
please.
cannot give someone your medicine out of your practice that is not your patient. That is against the law.
It's not against the law. I'm trying to ask questions.
Both of you, the medication issue isn't what we're talking about.
Let go.
Yes,
The dog
sir. Absolutely.
by a brown dog. All right. Questions from the board for the witness?
If you have any questions, please raise your hand so I can identify you. I don't see any. Oh, Ms. Wertz, I'm sorry. Ms. Wertz.
I have questions.
Ms. Wertz.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. and Ms. Crean. Here's my concern. I've seen reports and letters about your dogs back towards 2017. It sounds like you're doing what you think is best to control the dogs. Maybe the dogs aren't controllable, or maybe you can't have relationships with any of your neighbors who repeatedly get bitten. I see a conflict for you between having children have good neighborhood relationships and the dogs being safe. So how do you explain that there are reports back to 2017 about this? I mean,
Sam,
if I
we
could,
didn't even live in this
yeah,
neighborhood
we
in
didn't-
2017.
we didn't
and
even have Bushido in 2017, and Bowie is only 3 years old. So I'm not sure what reports you're reading about our dogs, but we weren't even in this house.
and we didn't have either of these dogs at that time. And additionally, I was trying to ask questions of Mrs. Hendricks, because if her children were getting bit by dogs, why did she repeatedly send them back to this house? Additionally, the photos that she provided, there shows no backdrop, no date, no time. This could have been somebody who got poked with anything. There's no way to substantiate the fact that my dog did this without a timestamp. So if she had timestamped it with a date and time, and she could correlate that.
The timestamp is to the dog rescue.
Ms. Hendricks, hold on. Ms. Crean, did one of your dogs bite the young man?
Yeah, Bowie.
Go ahead and lie.
Bowie, you want me to lie?
No, I
Okay,
just want
thanks.
to.
So yeah, I remember the day they were here. They were all here yahooing around, whatever, and playing and whatever. And there was, boys doing boy things, whatever. And Bowie got wound up and he nipped at his leg. Yes, he did.
Mr.
Bowie did
Bowen.
not run across the yard and attack him.
Now,
It is not what
Madam
happened.
Chair, Are there any other questions for Ms. Hendricks?
Miss Cloutier has questions.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify for Mrs. Wertz that the incident in 2017 was regarding separate dogs. The reason that I attached it was because at that point, those dogs, according to the previous animal control officer, were given restrictions based on a dangerous dog perspective as well, just to show that they do have experience with dangerous dog restrictions.
Thank
Okay,
you.
but just for clarification, that's not these dogs, right?
No, nope, the
Okay.
incident from 2017 is
So,
not.
Board, I'm gonna instruct you not to take that into account. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. Any other questions for the witness, please?
I have a question for the dog officer.
No.
No.
Next, witness, please.
I don't believe there are any others.
Okay,
If I-
thank you.
I-
Now,
I'm
Mr.
incorrect. Let me just ask if there's a different witness with David.
Because, Ellen McClure has home from work now.
We really can't hear you, sir.
Mrs. McClure is home from work now, and she'd like to testify.
Mr.
I-
Bone,
I can't hear what's being said.
it's Mrs. McClure who is willing to testify. She's been named in some of the complaints, sir.
Okay, has she been sworn in?
She can be now, yes.
All right. Can you hold the phone very close so we can hear?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh.
much better.
Okay, ma'am, could you give us your name and tell us what your observations were, please?
Hi, yes, I live on the property where the two dogs were just recently attacked. At 8 Old Glen Charlie, though, that's my yard, that's my fence. I've been here for the whole thing. I just came in right when you guys sworn in, so I've been here present.
Could you identify yourself for the record, your full name, please?
Yep, it's Erin McClure.
Sorry.
And what evidence do you want to give to the board?
So we bought the property in 2019, in November. And this problem with the dog started shortly after in 2020. It's the same dogs. I used to have 3. I used to have a smaller dog too that recently passed away in November, but that dog was attacked multiple times. There's a police report for every time. I just recently had to get an attorney because I've never personally gone after them for the medical bills for the dogs because I was hoping that they would kind of learn their lesson and keep them put aside, but it's constant. I'm a nurse. I'm constantly leaving work, getting phone calls that the dogs are back on my property, or I'm outside with my 7-year-old who, on the last 2 times these dogs get out, both times my son was here. I'm sorry, my son was here the second time when they broke quarantine. The first time he was at school. I was outside and both of her dogs were on my property. She did get them back before animal control, that's Mrs. Crane, came here and then said they were home, but it wasn't. And they went right after my 7-year-old. And this is something that's happened multiple times. My son's drawing pictures at school. His dogs are constantly being attacked. I have a very expensive English bulldog that's face has been ripped apart. My old English is so old. And her face, the dog was just locked onto her nose. I think my dog passed away in November because of an infection that I've been battling from the time before. There was about a year that it was quiet. That's only because Shannon Crane was setting up a private practice on Main Street. So, and after that was set up, they say the same thing when they come down here. They don't care. They said the same thing in court. The judge said if these dogs get out again, they will be euthanized. That has not happened. That's been over 2 years since we've gone to court. My son can't go outside. He's scared to death. These dogs are his best friend. My oldest one that was recently attacked has an infection in her face. And she is 13 and will probably pass away from this because I can't get the infections to stop, which is why I've had to get an attorney. I need peace in my home and I can't enjoy my property because
I have neighbors that absolutely refuse. They've never apologized. They come down very aggressively. This has caused multiple arguments, and I don't know what to do besides I've been told possibly sell my property, which I'm not going to do at this point because I don't think this is right. I've had a police officer one time tell me to maybe you can just get a hold of this dog and go drop it off somewhere, which I refuse to do. And they've also told me to put poison out there to kill or shoot the dog. I don't know what to do, but I have a child here that needs to be protected. And I'm sorry, but my child comes before 2 dogs that have been getting out constantly with different, if you pull the records on the street, it's a very small street, you're going to see so many reports. And these people just have the same story that they live on the water. It's the same thing they used in court. And the judge said she does not care, but this keeps happening. I'm just looking for help at this point. I just want peace in my life. I want these neighbors out of my life. I want the situation behind me, but most importantly, I want my dogs that have never gotten out of this property, have always been contained, are getting mangled. And my 7-year-old almost got it last time on the last quarantine from the dogs that got out again. Both of them were out.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions for the witness from the Koreans?
I have one question. I would really like the name of the officer that told you to discharge a firearm within 500 feet
That's
of the house.
absolutely not important to this
Yeah,
conversation.
it is important because,
It's not.
okay, well, we know what your story
We're
is.
going to be going back to court anyway for all the damages. So
Well, that's
It's
okay.
we can
illegal.
bring that up then.
It's
Any-
illegal to
That's
discharge a
irrelevant to your
firearm.
dogs.
Let's just
All
let
right.
me talk.
Any
It's
other?
illegal to discharge a firearm within
Excuse
500
me.
feet of the dwelling.
Excuse me.
Witness?
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
No other questions for the witness?
I
Thank
do
you.
have questions.
Oh, really?
I do.
Oh.
All right,
She
let's hear
said
it.
that both dogs have attacked her and her dogs. Why have there not been any complaints against Bowie?
There has been multiple. As you can see, this has been going on for years. It will be 4 years that I've owned this property in November. I moved in a week before Thanksgiving. It has been hell since I bought this property.
All right, ma'am. She's answered your question. Any other questions?
I do have another question.
Let's hear it.
Your dog sustained injuries and died 14 months later?
My dog has been battling an infection, right? Because she was so old since, and she's never recovered. She's been going downhill since. She's been multiple times attacked by your dogs. Yes. An infection after infection after infection. So yes.
I have a
Okay.
question for the board. Would that be
Any
okay?
other questions?
One question for the board.
Not for the board, no.
Not for the board?
You'll get your chance, not yet. Okay, any other questions for this witness?
Any members of my board have questions of this witness? No, sir, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, ma'am. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, there being no other persons testifying for prosecution, the Koreans, you get to put on your case. Please present the testimony that you want the board to hear.
Oh, there we are. Sorry. So, tomorrow I'm going to have my attorney contact the courthouse and get all these records and documents that they talk of, because there's 15 to 20 or more. So I'm going to have my attorney get a hold of all of this so I can bring that to the board.
Our attorney is Tim Ciafoni.
Yeah, so we'll have Tim get down there, get that under control. And then we have told you in the beginning of this what we are doing, what we've done, what we have, trying to do to prevent and whatever. And it's turning into a Bowie witch hunt. So we've already said what we're trying to accomplish. We've put up fencing. We've got the waterfront, blocked off. We've got training. We've got the trainers from Middleborough all set up. We got the GPS, electric shock collar, whatever. I can put a border around her anywhere I put her, anywhere I take her. But I think if you listen to this whole thing about Bushido being violent has turned on Bowie attacking people in the street. So I think that if we have to have another meeting, that people who are going to join should get their facts straight.
Additionally, I would like to add that I think the reason why Jared Chadwick recused himself is because he has come to my house on multiple occasions unannounced and has never been attacked by any of my dogs. And he is a big looming
All right,
figure.
the reasons for Mr. Chadwick's recusal aren't material to your defense.
Because
You-
he is a person who has come to my house unannounced and knows my dogs intimately. So this is the reason why he has recused himself. And Miss Texera Hendricks, whatever her name is, has
Oh, wait a
said
minute.
friends in high places, which is why Jared has recused himself, because he knows my dogs intimately. And I can guarantee you that Mr. Chadwick would not come to my house if I had vicious
And we
dogs.
don't have sergeants and all this crap. What kind of talk is that? We have sergeants in our pocket? What are we?
What it is you have two neighbors who are angry at me because I, like Miss McClure said, have opened my own practice in town. And that's what it goes to. And the fact that her son threatened to sodomize my 14-year-old.
So it's
All right.
This is where it all stems from. This is where it all comes from.
To have you shut off.
okay.
Did your dog bite anyone?
Do they bite? No.
My dog bit people in my property where my property is properly fenced off and where my property states do
Were
not
those
enter
people
Dutch
trespassing?
Shepherd bites.
Were
So
those
it's
people
in my
trespassing?
property?
Will they what?
Were those people trespassers?
Yes.
The dog officer said it doesn't
Yes,
matter whether
they
they were
were.
trespassing or not. They came in unannounced.
Unannounced.
The sign at the door says, Shepherd will bite.
They were
So-
with you.
Okay,
No, they were not
They
with
were
us,
with
Carrie.
Excuse me,
If they
Mr.
were with me, Carrie, why did I go running across the yard?
My
to get
Excuse me,
children were
Mr.
with
Bowen,
you. You
Mr.
just
Bowen.
admitted.
I'm going to
Excuse
ask
me, you
the
just
other
admitted that
witnesses.
my children were
Excuse
with
me,
you.
Miss Hendricks, please stop talking.
Yes,
Madam,
ma'am.
the other witnesses, their role is finished.
Please mute yourself, Miss Hendricks.
I don't know how. I've been trying for the past 15 minutes.
Okay,
I'm
so
just
then
quiet.
please stop talking. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Bowen,
All right. So you're telling the board that Kayla was a trespasser when she was.
Unannounced. That's
Is that
what the dog officer said.
Or
If you came in
You came in
unannounced,
Cheryl said.
usually
Cheryl said.
when
you can.
people enter the property, we
It's a
escort.
yes or no
Are
question.
you going to let me answer the question?
I'm trying to get you to answer the question and not to dance around it. Was she trespassing when she followed you into your house?
He didn't follow us into the house. We were in the house.
She came in unannounced. We did not know she was
We didn't
coming.
know. If we had known, I would have gone to the gate and gotten her and then walked through. And then Bowie was out in the yard. That's why it was unannounced coming into the yard.
May I say something?
And who are you?
Okay, I'm not sure.
no,
Oh,
no, Kayla, no. No one
Don't
is
tell me
speaking.
no.
No one is speaking except Mr. Bowen. Please mute yourself. Thank you.
all right. Do you have any other evidence that you want to offer, Mr. and Mrs. Crean?
Yes, I would like to say on
This is
record.
your chance, your evidence. So let's have it.
Yes, I would like to say on record, Bushido is the one that gets out. Bushido is the problem. Bushido goes to the McClure's house, and that's what this is about. The fact that my dog, Bushido, has escaped the yard on 4 different occasions over the past 4 years. She has gone there. The police have been called because of Bushido. Bowie has only bit within the property. Bowie has never escaped the property, not once ever. Bowie has never bit outside the walls ever. The fact that this is a witch hunt about Bowie, the Hendricks family has nothing to do with Bushido because Bushido has never bit any of the Hendricks people. Bushido is the one in question because she is the one that goes to the McClure's house and has attacked the dogs through a chain link fence, which my dog's face is enormous. She's a 100-pound dog, but we accept the fact, and I accept responsibility that Bushido has gotten out on more than one occasion, 4 occasions in the past
What you're
4
saying is
years.
Bushido is the biter?
Pardon?
Bushido is the biter here?
Yes, Bushido is the one in question that has gone to the McClure's house on multiple occasions and has attacked their dogs. Bowie has never been out of the property and has only bitten people that have come into this property without proper supervision, or when the dog has been riled up due to, you know, male genetic behaviors, which is fighting, wrestling, that kind of stuff.
What
But
have you got for warning signs?
he had none, because we weren't expecting the children to be wrestling in the backyard, and you know, they were playing football and it was tackle, and he saw that his person was under attack. Bowie has never left the yard. Bushido is the one that leaves the yard. When the Hendricks kids came into my yard, they never had a problem with Bushido. Bushido has never hurt, attacked, or done anything to anybody in the yard. She's the one that escapes and barks at the fence at the McClure's house. Bowie has never left the yard. So we have two different dogs, two different situations. And then the dog officer brings in dogs that weren't even alive in 2017. We've only had Bowie for 2 years, three years. And Bushido has never bitten a person, ever. She has attacked a fence that had dogs behind it.
I'm confused. You just agreed that Bushido was an escape artist and a biter.
Yes, she has bitten the fence repeatedly. She is an escape artist, and you've seen the video where she was attacking a fence that had 3 dogs behind it. One dog that took 14 months later to die.
The reason you're seeing a 1.5-year-old video is because Harry and McClure, they don't want to show you the videos of them screaming and swearing in my face that my dog's going to be fucking killed. And this is the
I didn't say that.
Mr. Bowen, I have a suggestion, sir. Mr. Bowen, I have a suggestion.
Love to hear it.
I would ask that everyone the McClure's, Hendricks be removed from the meeting, go back into the attendees by WCTV, so that the only people that we would be addressing at the moment would be the Creans. Is that a good suggestion, sir?
That's the way it should be.
Excellent. Noah, please remove David, Kayla, and Hendricks. I guess you already did. Remove David back into the attendees, please. No.
Ms. Mc-
So now
So
we have the dog officer and the Creans.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowen.
So questions from the board
For who?
from the board for things.
Any questions from the board of the Creans? Raise
Correct.
your hand. Mr. Slavin, you're muted, sir.
So are we saying that these incidents, we have records going back at least 3 years on these particular dogs?
One particular dog, it's Bushido. Bushido is the only one who has ever escaped the yard.
Devin, do you have on your end from Natural Resources records that go back 3 years at all?
From what I can attest to with my own personal experience has only been this past year, but I do have the previous animal control officer has a report here from October 7th, 2021. That includes,
What does that report say,
would you like me to read it?
please?
On October 7th, 2021, I, Wareham Animal Control Officer Gorveyat Dill, received a phone call from a woman who identified herself as Erin McClure. She reported that a dog owned by her neighbor, Russell Crean, was in her yard off leash on October 3rd, 2021, and attacked her dogs, resulting in serious injury. She also reported that the incident was captured on video and she would forward them to me. Miss McClure reported one of her dogs may not survive the attack and was currently being treated at Cape Cod Veterinary Specialist. I requested any and all evidence of such attack and injuries be forwarded to my department as soon as possible. I was informed that the injuries the dog incurred involved lacerations to the face. I then contacted the dog owner, who I am familiar with and have had aggressive loose dog issues with in the past, Russell Crean. He admitted his dog was loose and off his property, but denied that any injuries resulted from his dog's attack. I issued a 10-day quarantine to the dog owner as required by MGL and also issued same a citation for the loose dog violation.
So at that particular time, there was no hearing coming before the Board of Selectmen, whoever was in charge of these issues at all.
Not that I'm aware of. I do not have a record that I could locate that there was a hearing requested at that point.
There was no hearing requested, sir.
Yeah, I know, that's why I'm trying to get to all this. This particular attack, were these dogs behind the fence?
I am not sure. It's not stated in this report. And
Are
it's also not stated which dog was involved in that report as well.
Because, looking at a video, we see 3 dogs or 2 dogs behind a fence and the white dog, barking and jumping up and down in the fence and stuff. I'm just confused because I can't understand how anything would not have a hearing and not have some kind of, restrictions, etc. This makes no sense at all going on for 3 or 4 years like this. I'm just hearing mixed information back and forth. Has the town of Wareham, I hate to say this, have we failed? Or has nobody actually asked us to do something?
If I could just speak from, I guess, my opinion is that that's the only report that I have from the previous animal control officer. There are listed some calls that may have come in regarding loose dogs, but no reports were in, so no dog bites happened at those times that I'm aware of. But I don't know. I keep getting a lot of mixed information that a lot of these bites were reported, but I don't have a record of them on my end for either under Russell Crean's name or Shannon Crean.
This is going to be premature. I don't want you to actually answer, with any details. I'm going to make an assumption, bad word, that you're going to have recommendations for us after we go past this next phase.
Mm-hmm.
The recommendations were in the request, sir.
I want to make sure that that's what we're going to actually have.
And Madam Chairman, I thought it was appropriate to get all the evidence out before we got to any recommendations.
Yes, that's correct. He's not
asking
asking he's just asking if there are recommendations, and
That's
there
all.
are.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm done.
Mr. Bessie?
So I have after, but I just have a couple of questions just so I can add to my notes here. So it doesn't sound like we have any denial from the Koreans that both of their dogs are guilty of bites, whether
Ron, you're freezing up.
in
Ron,
the
you
yard, outside yard. There's no denial that dogs have their unprovoked. Is that correct? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me now. So the one question I have is, so we're not
You froze.
denying that there have been attacks by both dogs revoked. Can you hear me now?
I believe you're going to have to restate that, Mr. Bessie, because you're.
Okay. So the only thing I want to put into my notes is that unprovoked, some against animals, some against human. Correct.
Again, you lost part of your question. I believe your question was, is it correct that the record shows that there are provoked or unprovoked attacks and bites either on people or animals in the record? Is that basically what you're asking?
Correct. Yeah. Basically, yes.
My records only show bites to dogs. I do not have record of bites to human.
Thank
No,
you.
I'm asking the Koreans that they have admitted to both dogs having issues with either humans or pets inside the property and outside the property. Not that you have on record from the time that you've been the animal control officer. I'm just saying the Koreans have admitted to the fact that Bowie has attacked humans within the property. And Bushido has attacked animals outside of the property. That's all. I just want to make sure that I have those facts correct in my notes.
May I address this? I want to,
Mr. Bowen, can you instruct her that's either yes or no, please?
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to get clarity of the question.
Attack.
Okay, the question is, have your dogs bitten anyone? Period.
Yes.
Which dog bit humans?
Bowie,
And which dog bit other dogs?
Bushido.
Well,
But what is the nature of this complaint?
Mr. Bowen, please.
Yes,
She answered his question.
yes.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, Mr. Bessie?
No, that was just for clarification for my notes. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
No, sir.
All right. So at this point, I'm going to ask the animal control officer to sum up and offer any recommendations that she might choose to make. And then I'll ask the Koreans to sum up and suggest what action might be appropriate. Madam Animal Control Officer, go ahead.
So my recommendations are solely based on the two calls that I have had experience with the Koreans regarding the bites with Bushido on the two dogs at the McClure's home. Both of them, as a summary, are that the dogs are contained and that they're not to be allowed loose off the property by any means, whether that's through escaping or through walking under verbal restraint. They are to be physically restrained, and just everything is defined per Mass General Law, and requesting fencing.
I believe, Ms. Cloutier, what he's asking you to do is read the recommendations that
Okay.
you submitted in writing.
Okay, so for both dogs, is that the dog be humanely restrained, provided, however, that no order shall provide that the dog deemed dangerous be chained, tethered, or otherwise tied to an inanimate object, including but not limited to a tree, post, or building. 2 would be that the dog be confined by the premises to the premises of the owner of the dog, provided, however, that confined shall mean securely confined indoors or confined outdoors in a securely enclosed and locked pen or dog run area upon the premises of the owner or keeper, provided further that such pen or dog run shall have a secure roof, and if such enclosure has no floor secured to the sides thereof, the sides shall be embedded into the ground of not less than 2 feet, and provided further that within the confines of such pen or dog run, a dog house or proper shelter from the elements shall be provided to protect the dog. 3, that when removed from the premises of the owner or the premises of the person keeping the dog shall be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain or other tethering device having a minimum strength of 300 pounds and not exceeding 3 feet in length. 4, that the owner or keeper of the dog provide proof of insurance in an amount not less than $100,000, insuring the owner or keeper against any claim, loss, damage, or injury to persons, domestic animals, or property resulting from the acts, whether intentional or unintentional, of the dog, or proof that reasonable efforts were made to obtain such insurance if a policy has not been issued. Provided, however, that if a policy of insurance has been issued, the owner or keeper shall produce such policy upon request of the hearing authority or a justice of the district court, and provided further that if a policy has not been issued, the owner or keeper shall produce proof of efforts to obtain such insurance. 5, that the owner or keeper of the dog provide to the licensing authority or animal control officer or other entity identified in the order information by which the dog may be identified throughout its lifetime, including but not limited to photographs, videos, veterinary examination, tattooing or microchip implantations, or a combination of such methods of identification. 6, that unless an owner or keeper of the dog provides evidence that a veterinarian is of the opinion of the dog is unfit for alterations because of medical condition, the owner or keeper of the dog shall cause the dog to be altered so that the dog shall not be reproductively intact. Those are for both dogs. And then Bushido is the only one that I have included as a seventh recommendation, which would be, or that the dog is humanely euthanized
As an alternative.
as an alternative.
Okay, thank you. Koreans, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes, I would like to address this. First of all, I have $1 million umbrella policy on my home that does include personal injury. Second of all, we have installed 50 additional feet of fencing within the waterfront to prevent the dog from going out. We own 3 lots. All 3 lots are fenced in except the waterfront. So we have enclosed 50 feet of additional waterfront, which is where the dog, Bushido, typically escapes from. Bowie has never left the property without supervision, ever. Additionally, Bushido is sick. She has tumors. She is end stage. Our time with her is very, very limited. I really don't want to euthanize her yet because she is full of cancer. And so I would like to keep the dog at home now that we have secured all 4 areas of our border. Bowie.
May I understand that euthanization was an alternative to not doing the 6 items?
Yes, I get that, but it hurts when you talk about
still out there.
euthanizing a sick dog who's.
It was a different dog, Mr. Bowen. She's talking about the Bowie, not Bushido.
No, Bushido's the
Bushido.
sick one.
Bushido's
Oh, all right.
Bushido's full of
No,
cancer.
Go ahead,
Yes.
please. I just wanted to make sure you knew that that was not what the recommendation was.
Additionally, we have secured with a professional canine agency to take into both of our dogs, particularly Bowie, because he has a longer life expectancy than Bushido does. So we are doing intensive training 3 to 4 days a week.
They take them for 2 weeks straight. Sorry.
They take it for 2 weeks straight,
straight.
and then we have to do the training
Right.
at the facility.
Right.
So we have contracted with these people who are professional canine trainers. I don't expect that Bushido is going to live long enough to see another incident. She was fully contained for over a year before the last time she got out, and then she got out immediately. And that is completely our fault. It was my 12-year-old daughter that let her out when she got home from school and didn't pay attention, and the dog wandered off. But my daughter has been counseled. The dogs will not be let off. We have
They're
bought
not
this
let out
ever.
unattended.
No, and we bought the Cesar Milan
Yeah,
collar,
so-
which she's in. Bowie's not a problem. Bowie does not leave the property ever. We have had problems with these people since they've moved in because of
That's-
allegations that are not
a different-
related to this
different
at
story.
all.
All right, well, stop right.
Different story.
I'm not going into that.
So
You heard
doing everything we can.
He's talking.
Oh,
Please, you heard the suggestions of the animal control officer. Was there anything, setting aside the euthanization bit, is there anything on the list of her recommendations that you object to or feel that you can't do or haven't been doing? Sounds like you've been doing some of it.
no, actually, no, I don't object to any of it. And actually, when she brought me back my quarantine release papers, I even showed her the fencing that, I had stuck in the water so that, trying to, get this one contained and everything and what we were doing. And we're even replacing a fence. We have a 4 or 5 foot fence on one side. We're replacing it with the 7-foot fence that matches our other. So we walked the property. I showed her what was what. I did have an opening in another fence for some construction, but that has since been all sealed up, closed off, and everything. So
Reinforced.
everything that she had said to me, we've done that part.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
If the board were to make a determination that, there had been these incidents and adopted the animal control officer's recommendations, forget about the euthanasia part, would you object to that? And
No,
I would
actually,
not.
we
No.
have incorporated
Yeah.
every one of her
The only
suggestions.
thing I don't have is I haven't ordered a muzzle. I got to find one to fit her big squash, but
No, we have
that's the
incorporated
only
every
thing.
single one of her recommendations. We look forward to her recommendations and we take them into consideration.
So we've
I mean, we highly respect her. We've never tried to cover it or lie about it. We really respect the officer and we take all of her considerations under advisement, and we have incorporated
Yeah.
all of them except the muzzle.
Yeah, the only thing left is to find a muzzle that'll fit her big bucket of a head.
But if you look
Well-
at it now, she's sitting on the bed dying.
No,
Like
no,
she
okay.
is so full of tumors that
Okay.
she,
Okay.
Well, I feel bad about that. Members of the board, I think at this point you've got recommendations from the animal control officer. It sounds like the Koreans could abide by them. We're not talking about that euthanasia one. An appropriate way to move forward would be for you to close the hearing. Then, Madam Chairman, when you retake the helm, get a motion as to whether the animals are dangerous. Take your vote, and if you find that they are dangerous, then take up the question of the animal control officer's recommendations and whether you wish to impose those. So with that, Madam Chairman, over to you.
Thank you. Ms. Wertz, I would ask for a motion to please close the hearing, and I would ask Noah that you remove the cranes back into the attendees, please. Ms. Wertz, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Just before I make a motion to close the hearing, Mr. Slavin has his hand up about something.
Well, I don't know if he had it back up again. Do you have another question, Mr. Slavin? It's his question, sir.
Yes, I'm just trying to think how I'm gonna word this. The fence in the back that they talk about in the water, I hope we all realize that that's not gonna be possible.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. That wasn't a question. Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion to close the hearing, please.
I'm sorry to barge in, Madam Chairman. I just want to, as an aside, and maybe it just as a council of Koreans here a little bit. I'm pretty sure that if there's a fence in the water, that there are going to be some other laws involved. So please, should the board adopt the animal control officer's recommendations, please do not get it into your mind that somehow blesses fences in the water. That you'll have to visit with the conservation agent. He's a very nice fellow and very attentive, and get that aspect straightened out. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Wertz.
I make a motion to close the dog hearing for Karen
Crane.
Crean.
Is there a second to the motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing. Is there any further discussion on the motion to close the hearing? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes, the hearing is closed. I will now accept a motion on the recommendation for Bowie. And you have the copies of the recommendations, and Ms. Cloutier also read them into the record. And the only thing that I would ask is that the motion, however you make it, there's a time frame for accomplishing any or all of the 1 through 6 for Bowie. In other words, within 30 days or, whatever period you have. No one else will be allowed to speak. The board is now making a motion. So please put your hands down. Ms. Wertz.
I make a motion that we, how do I say it?
Adopt the
That
recommendations.
we adopt the recommendations of Devon, the dog officer regarding Bowie.
Is there a second to the motion?
The second.
Motion is made and seconded. Is there a time within which you would like those things to be accomplished, Ms. Wertz?
I would say 30 days is a reasonable time.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin, is that okay with you as a second? That
Yes.
items 1 through 6 regarding Bowie be accomplished within 30 days?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I may have missed it. I was distracted momentarily. Did I hear the motion say that the board was going to find that the 2 dogs were dangerous and then goes on to adopt the recommendations?
I was trying to do it one dog at a time, sir.
Yeah, but I think the predicate finding for
Okay,
each dog is as to dangerousness. Only then are you in a position to implement the recommendations.
okay, so then I would have to accept a motion to deem that both dogs are dangerous. Is that correct?
I'll remove my second on Tricia's motion.
Can you
Yeah.
withdraw your motion?
In
please?
fact, I could withdraw the motion.
Okay.
We can
Now
start
may I have
again.
a motion to deem that both dogs are indeed dangerous under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 136.
I don't have those figures in front of me.
I just read them.
So,
Chapter 140,
Perfect.
Section 136A.
and
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. And
Second.
into the record, it says they are dangerous as defined by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 140, Section 136A by reason of 1, without justification, attacks a person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death, and 2, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe possesses and poses an unjustified imminent threat or physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. That is your motion, correct, Ms. Wertz?
absolutely.
Is that your second?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to deem both dogs dangerous as outlined under the law? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes, the dogs are deemed dangerous. Now, Ms. Wertz, the
Okay,
motion would be regarding the first dog, which would be Bowie, and the recommendations are 1 through 6, and I believe you had mentioned a 30-day deadline to prove that those actions had been taken.
And I can restate that, or we can go
Go
from
ahead.
what you just said. So I make a motion that we support the recommendation of the dog officer for the dog Bowie, and that all recommendations be implemented in a 30-day period.
Is there a second to that motion?
second with a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Slavin.
On the recommendation that Devin has made, we're basically listing it that the property is fully secured. As of right now, we're listing the property as being secured except for the water side. And we all know that that will not be acceptable to the Conservation Commission simply because of Mass General laws, et cetera. So I would think that Devon's motion should be modified, her list should be modified to say that all corners of the property will be fully fenced in.
Could I interject for a moment? I'm sorry. So that could also list as if they were able to build a secure dog enclosure within the property. So even if that's, a quarter of the yard that's fully enclosed, that their dogs are allowed to roam free in that enclosure, it could include something like that as well.
So that is part of her recommendations, sir.
Okay, and I'm asking her again, if they have a dog enclosure and the dog gets out of that enclosure and if it's not fully secured fence around the property itself, is that going to be a problem?
I don't think, Mr. Slavin,
I'm only asking the question because it seems like one of the dogs likes to run out in the water and go a certain distance and then come back on land.
Mr. Slavin, I believe that the indication has been that the fence that may or may not be in the water may or may not be there properly installed, or whatever you want to call it. I believe that her recommendations are specific enough that it says the confined shall mean securely confined indoors, blah, blah, blah. You had a copy of the recommendation. It's number 2 on the recommendations.
Could you let Mr.
Bowen, Mr.
chime
Bowen,
in?
Mr. Bowen, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I know what Alan's saying there. And I think that the board's order is that all of the property or a particular part of the property be enclosed. If either dog gets outside of the enclosure, be it a quarter of the yard, half the yard, all the yard, it violates your order. So
correct.
I think that's it. And I think, just say hypothetically, it was a quarter of the yard and a dog got out and was frolicking in the other 3/4, that would still be a violation, even though it was on the property. The key is enclosed.
That's
Thank
correct. It, under her recommendation number 2, the dog be confined to the premises that confined shall mean securely confined. And therefore, I mean, I may be being picky about this, but I believe it's covered in her recommendation. It gives you the size of the enclosure, you know, the height and everything.
I just want to make sure there's no loopholes.
I got that, and I appreciate that. So the motion would include that item 2 assures that the size of the enclosure within the property lines is totally confines either or both dogs. Is that correct, Mr. Slavin?
Yes,
That was your motion, right, Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
Good, Mr. Slavin, that was your second, am I correct?
that is my modified second, yes.
Excellent, okay. Now I'm going to go for a roll call vote on the motion to adopt the recommendations for Bowie, which are numbers 1 through 6. Going to go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
No.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
and myself, yes. 3-0-1. The motion is carried. I will
No.
now accept a motion.
3-1-0.
I'm
3-1-0.
sorry, 3-1-0. Yep, sorry. Ms. Wertz, I will accept a motion on Bushido.
I make a motion that we I don't know
Adopt
how
the
to
recommendations.
adopt the recommendations of the dog officer regarding the dog Bushido to include points 1 through 7.
It would have to be, I'm sorry, 1 through 6.
1 through 6 or number 7.
Or 7.
correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Motion made and seconded. And again, the motion would include the very specific outlining of the controlled or confined area within the property lines. Mr. Bessie, do you have a question?
Well, I just have some further discussion on this motion.
On this motion? Sure, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to have further discussion, but I didn't get it in on the first motion, so I'll get it in on the second motion. So I'm gonna just speak my concern. And let me preface this with I'm a dog owner. I love animals. I love dogs. I would spend my days with them doing nothing else but playing with dogs because I enjoy it so much. But my concern is we have multiple issues that have been brought before this board on a couple of specific occasions, but there are other issues that were brought up and not denied that have happened in the past. So my concern and the reason why I choose to not adopt the recommendations of the animal control officer, with no disrespect to her and the job that she does, it's not an easy job, is that I can't put my head on a pillow at night knowing that I would allow the potential of another issue to happen, and it being an issue that is much more than just a bite. I don't personally feel that the Creans have done their responsibility as dog owners to protect themselves and other people and animals from issues happening, because we're not just talking about one thing that's just happened. We're talking about a precedent, things that have happened over the years. I know that some of it we're not talking about, but I'm looking, if I am trying to make a decision on something that could affect somebody's future, I have to look at other things that may not be brought up today from this particular animal control officer, but other things that are on record, and saying that, okay, we give them, in what I consider a slap on the wrist and saying, do all of these things and fix them and everything will go away like it never happened. but then something happens, and now I am going to feel a certain way that isn't going to be good because I could have made a decision to control it and make sure that it doesn't happen. There is no easy answer. I get that. And I don't want people to think that I don't care and let's just sock it to them hard. That's not it at all. There is no easy answer, whatever way that we go. But I just want people to understand it's not because I don't care about animals and I don't care about people that own animals, but I also have to think about the people that have been affected and what could happen in the future. And then what's going to happen? Are we just going to come out and say, you know what, we don't even need to have a conversation. These dogs need to be whatever. So that is why I feel the way I do. It's not because I hate dogs or I hate people. I love them equally, but it's very hard. But I have to take a stance that I don't feel that I would be comfortable in saying that these recommendations are okay and something else happens. So that's my piece, and I'll stop there because I could go for.
I
Okay,
want to
so
put,
let me-
I want to put the motion
wait,
on
wait.
hold for a
Yeah,
minute.
hang on one second, Ms. Wertz. I'm just going to clarify something with Mr. Bessie, if you don't mind. Mr. Bessie, if she had made the motion, Mr. Bessie, had you made the motion for Bushido, what would your motion have been?
It's hard because not that I ever want to take and, you know, take away an animal and put a dog down or put anything down. Is my concern is that regardless of what we do to, you know, outside of putting the dogs in the basement and locking them away so that they could never get out of the house again, there is always that opportunity that no matter what safeguards are put in place, that either one of these pups could get out and cause imminent harm to either a human or a dog. So regardless of how much money is spent on training and, you know, putting up 50-foot fence or whatever it is, there's still the possibility that either one of these animals or somebody could come into the yard, because it's been discussed that, hey, people came in when they were unannounced and the dog reacted. So what is going to stop that from happening again in the future? That somebody walks into the property and the dog is roaming about because we've put a fence all the way around the property and not just contain them to a small piece from somebody getting attacked again. And those are my concerns. What my motion would be, you know, I don't know. It's so hard, and, you know, I'm torn because I have feeling for both sides of the fence as being a dog owner and, you know, being someone that, you know, has kids, loves kids, you know, so I couldn't tell you what my motion would be, but I can't support something knowing that there is the possibility of all of these things happening and going good. And then one day the dog just decides to become another way to escape. And, you know, maybe next time a dog attack turns into, you know, could be a pet dying, it could be a child dying. I don't know. It's very hard.
Okay.
I can't
I'm just going to repeat. The dog, Ms. Cloutier's recommendation for Bushido are 1 through 6, or to order the dog humanely euthanized. I believe that is what I read in the way that that was presented. Is that correct, Ms. Cloutier?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Ms.
So,
Wertz, I'll go back to you now.
Sorry.
So first of all, I want to put my motion on hold.
Yep. How about, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Devin, I actually have a couple of questions for you, or maybe, no, it's a clarification. It's not a question. So
Okay.
it's either you or Judith. Is when we look at these items and we put a 30-day performance
Yes.
on it, is it part of your job to go back and check and see if that's been done, or who owns that responsibility?
If I'm not mistaken, it is up to me to go back within the 30-day period and
Okay.
confirm that all of these precautions are taken. And if you don't mind, if I could just clarify for Mr. Bessie, under section 2, just in the regards to people entering the property, it does clarify that any enclosure, whether it's full fencing or a pen, it must be locked to prevent any entry.
Thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Wertz.
So to restate the motion, I make a motion that we adopt the dog officer's recommendation plan for, we're on Bowie now or
Bushido.
Bushido, for the dog Bushido. And that said recommendations be implemented within a 30-day period.
And what are they, 1 through 6, or does it include number 7?
It's 1 through 6 or 7. They can do either or.
Mr.
That's how
Bowen.
it's written.
Okay, Mr. Bowen, is that a clear enough motion, sir? Number 7 is that the dog be humanely euthanized. The others are the lists of the, the fencing and the other stuff.
Well, it's a bit academic because if you adopt the same recommendations for both dogs, they're going to do 1 through 6. Even if you threw in or 7, it's really their option as to whether to euthanize the dog, which is their option regardless of what you order.
Right, but okay, let me ask the question a little bit differently, because I think I know what a couple of you are driving at. Can this board make a motion to have the dog humanely euthanized?
Well, if you felt that the evidence was there, and I suppose you could.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Wertz, does that help you or not? You have it as 1 through 7, which includes the
right.
humanely, the sentence or humanely euthanized, which, as Mr. Bowen says, leaves it up to the owners. And the 30 days was included in your motion.
Yeah, and the 30 days is included. So let's say, I'm asking because I'm new at this. I'm only a year old at this. If the 30 days is completed and is passed and these things have not been done,
back to us.
That's what happens. It wouldn't go automatically to euthanize. It would have to come back to us.
I believe it has to come back to us. That Mr. Bowen.
I also believe that they would be in violation, which, if I'm not mistaken, I would have to clarify, but it would result in, I think, please don't quote me, but it's roughly a $500 citation per day that they're in violation.
Mr. Bowen.
Well, my advice would be if the time went by and there was non-compliance and there was a question of whether the dog should be euthanized, at that point, you just hold a separate proceeding and take whatever vote is warranted at that time.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I'm going to allow any more questions. The motion stands and the second stands, and it's 1 through 7. I'm now going to go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
No.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Myself, yes. 3-1-0. Now, we will write a letter tomorrow, and that will be sent to the Cranes. I believe they have a 30-day, or is it 10-day? I don't remember what the statute says, that they have a time frame to appeal the decision, but we will get that letter out tomorrow. Okay, we have some additional information that we need to deal with for tonight. Ms. Wertz, 8A, may I have a motion to approve the opt-out and reduction fees for the curbside billing in the amount of $2767.92.
Excuse me.
made.
Yep.
Jared, need to be let back in.
Yeah, 1 second, Mr. Bowen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did that
Oh, sorry.
motion cover both dogs?
The first motion was, for the item 7. No, the item 7 for the or euthanize was only for Bushido.
Okay, so before you move on, you should decide whether the other dog should be subject to any action.
You mean as in add item 7?
Well, no. You had 2 dogs that were the subject of the complaint. You took a vote on one of them.
We
What
took a
about
vote on both of them.
Both of them.
We did
separate.
the lesser dog.
Okay,
We did it first, and then we did the second dog with the additional or euthanized phrase.
okay, sorry, my apologies.
Thank you, Ms. Moritz. May I have the motion, please?
So I make a motion that we approve the opt-out and reduction fee applications for curbside billing FY 23 in the amount of $2,767.92.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. The record will show that Mr. Chadwick has rejoined the meeting. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the reduction and opt-out? Yes, Mr. Bessie.
I just had a question because we were talking about this. I know that there was some question about clarification on some of the reductions in those fees. Were those questions answered?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
myself, yes, they are approved. May I have a motion to appoint the town administrator as the public poll hearing officer, Ms. Wertz?
I make that motion.
Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. The reason we are doing this is that from time to time, the utilities ask for a poll hearing, and we can give that authority on our behalf to the town administrator, and he has agreed to take that. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
myself, yes, he is therefore done. And Ms. Wertz, I'll accept a motion on 8C, please.
so I'd like to spell out first, when I read this, we talked about,
You're going to add specific,
right,
yes,
Right.
please. Go ahead.
so I'd make a motion to approve the addition of the following
No.
people.
You're going to designate agents for the liquor licensing authority.
I make a motion that will designate agents for the liquor license authority. Those agents can include building inspectors, Board of Health members, police department members, and members of either of the two fire departments or both.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
And it is under Mass General Law, Chapter 138. And again, the reason for this is it's very clear under the law that we have the right to do those inspections, but from time to time, it would be appropriate to have other people do them. Mr. Bowen.
Just wanted to make sure we included health agent in the list. Thank
Board
you.
of Health and Health Agent.
Okay, so Board of Health and Health Agent.
Health
Yes.
Agent, yeah.
Is that okay with your second?
Yes.
Who
Oh,
made the
it's a
second?
I did. So
Okay.
I did my second.
Okay, excellent. Any further discussion on the motion with the clarification? Here, what, Mr. Slavin?
Smile. The main reason we do this is because if we as a board went out and did a check on a liquor license issue, whatever else, I believe Mr. Bowen can confirm, we probably would have to recuse ourselves when the actual hearing came before us.
That's correct. That's exactly why we're doing it, Mr. Slavin.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Ms. Wertz, I'm going for a roll call vote. Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Ms. Wertz, please read the vote to hold a 2023 special town meeting. There are scrivener's errors on the agenda. So it should read, Ms. Wertz is going to be reading
It should,
yeah, you're going to make a motion that we approve, that we adopt what you're going to read, and that will be seconded. Okay.
Yeah. So we make a motion, we
motion,
move
yeah.
and adopt, make a motion for a possible vote to hold a 2023 special town meeting and to post notice of intent.
There's
And
second.
Second.
Excellent. Now read it, please, Ms. Wertz.
Notice of July 4th, 2023 special town meeting to either the constables of the town of Wareham in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in accordance with the provisions of Division 1, Article 1, Section 3 of the bylaws of the town of Wareham amended, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the legal voters of the town of Wareham that a special town meeting has been called for the select board and to be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, July 24th, at which time the business of the town meeting shall be transacted. The warrant for this meeting will open Friday, June 16th, 2023. The last day for submission of articles to be inserted in the warrant is Monday, June 26th, 2023. Petitions, articles will be accepted up until 5 p.m. at the above address. The warrant for this meeting will close on Tuesday, June 27th, 23rd, and you are hereby directed to serve this notice by posting an attested copy thereof upon the town's principal bulletin board on or before Friday, June 30th, 2023. Hereof fail not and make due return of this posting with your doings thereon to the town clerk, given under our hands at Wareham this 13th day of June in the year 2023
By the Wareham Select Board.
by the Wareham Select Board.
And read the names, please.
Judith Whiteside, Chairman, Patricia Wertz, Clerk, Alan Slavin, Ronald Bessie, Jared Chadwick.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion to notice this special town meeting? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. The meeting is called. This will be served on the town clerk tomorrow morning. I need to have you, all of you, or at least 3 of you, go to the office tomorrow. So first thing, if you can, and sign the this notice so that it can in fact be served. Now we will go to the town administrator's report because there is no 48-hour business.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. 2 things for the request for the 27th agenda. One is the COLA vote for Plymouth County Retirement. They have voted through to allow, which coincides with the acts of 2022, I think section 269, an active relative cost of living adjustments for retirees. What they're seeing if we'll vote is instead of the normal 3% increase on the COLA for retirees to do 5%. And just so everybody understands, for retirees, the amount that you're allowed for a COLA adjustment is on the first $16,000 of your retirement. Another thing that I found out while doing some research on here, believe it or not, the average pension for through Plymouth County Retirement is $27,500. But Ford, I believe you've received some documents, but I can give you just a quick rundown as well. I went through it. On $16,000, the 3% is simple math is $480 for the year. The 5% is $800. So it's a difference of $320 or $26.67 a month. There is a price tag to that, as you saw. It would increase our pension obligation by $142,657. That would be starting in fiscal year 25. So it would not impact next year's budget starting July 1. But just a reminder, we are still on pace to close out having this sort of pension obligation through the fiscal year 2029. So then we would go with a regular rather than a catch up, which will be a difference of about $4 to $5 million in our favor at that point.
Excellent. So you want this on the agenda of the 27th, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you just send me an email?
Yep, and if you can't tell, my recommendation as well, the biggest penny pincher around, these are our retirees, and Social Security COLAs in 2022 were 5.9% and then 8.7 for 2023.
Yep.
I think we can do that for the people that served our community very well.
I agree. Mr. Chadwick?
Is there a way to make a recommendation for that to be higher?
No, the maximum is that you're allowed 3 to 5%, not less than 3%, not more than 5.
All right, thank you.
Ivan, do you have a question? It's wonderful that you are muted.
I think I was insulted, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you
The reason we have to do it by the 27th is this has to be done by the 30th, or else our vote doesn't count.
Well, we could bring it up tonight as Mr. Sullivan would request it. It's a part of his agenda, part of his report, and then we would confirm it on the 27th.
I think it would be a good idea, simply because the retirement board voted on this and other agencies, and I believe there's something like 15 or 16 out of the 27, whatever is Plymouth municipalities have to vote in majority.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 2/3 majority vote.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion, Mr. Slavin.
Motion so made.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion made and seconded to adopt the recommendation or the request by the Plymouth County Retirement. Is that correct, Mr. Sullivan?
Yes, and we'll be seeking a confirmatory vote on the agenda on the 27th.
Correct.
Yes, a motion made in a second. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
I'm not muted, I say yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
myself, yes, so done.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
I appreciate it as well. I need I'm sorry to do this to you. I'll need an executive session on the 27th for a quick, it would be basically an injury.
I already have that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's been a long night. Good night.
Good. Okay, excellent. I will accept a motion to recess and no, I will accept a motion. Help me out here to go into executive session for reason number 3.
One second. Ms. Whiteside, just wanted to make one comment under board comments to the public real quick, if that's okay. I just want to state to the public that mental health is a serious thing. Reach out to your friends, reach out to everyone you know, check on them. Even if you don't think they have it, check on them. I just learned in tonight's meeting that we lost a firefighter on Nantucket. So please, everybody check on family and friends at all times.
Thank you, Mr. Chadwick.
Just want to
Okay,
make that public.
thank you. I will accept a motion to go into executive session for reason number 3.
So made.
Motion made and seconded to go into executive session for reason number 3. And we will be adjourning from the executive session. I'm going to take a roll call vote and then I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess while the attendees is cleared by WCTV. Any further discussion on the motion or the process? Hearing none, I'll go for a roll call vote to go into executive session. Ms. Wertz.
Yes.
Mr. Bessie.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick.
Yes.
Mr. Slavin.
Sure.
And myself, yes, it is now 9:23. I will expect you back here at 9:28. Noah, please remove everyone from the meeting except for the panelists who are in front of you. You have 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.